My fiancée used me as her personal ATM for 3 years, but when I heard her tell her friend she'd divorce me to take half of everything, I exposed her entire scheme in front of her whole family at our own engagement party. I'm 31 years old, I work in real estate, and I make good money. I'm not gonna lie, but I never thought that would be what would destroy my life the way it did. I guess I need to tell this story because there are still days when I wake up and I can't believe all that actually happened. You know, like it was one of those nightmares that feel too real. I met Amber like 3 years ago on a dating app, one of those typical ones where you swipe right if you like someone, and honestly, at first everything seemed perfect, like too perfect now that I think about it. She was 29 years old, worked in marketing or something like that. She was always smiling in her photos, and when we finally met in person, it was even better than I expected. The first date was at an Italian restaurant, nothing super fancy, but not a cheap place either. And I remember I was surprised by how easy it was to talk to her, like we'd known each other for years. You know what I mean? The first few months were amazing, honestly. We went out all the time, went to the movies, to concerts, did those random weekend plans where you just grab the car and drive anywhere. Amber was always planning things, always wanted to do something new, and I thought that was because she was spontaneous and adventurous, not because she was already calculating how much she could get out of me. My best friend Brian met her like in the third month and told me he thought she was cool, that you could see she made me happy. And I was happy. I mean, I really thought I had found the right person. We'd been dating for about a year when I decided I wanted to take the next step. You know, marriage and all that. I planned this whole romantic thing at a vineyard outside the city. I had a photographer hidden in the whole show. I got down on one knee with the ring, which cost me like 3 months' salary, by the way, and asked her if she wanted to marry me. And she said yes, crying and jumping, and at that moment I thought I was the luckiest guy in the world. How wrong I was. Literally, I had no idea. After the engagement, things started to change, but in such a gradual way that at first I didn't notice it. Amber started mentioning things she wanted, like not just clothes or shoes, but expensive things. First, it was a designer purse. Then she wanted us to renovate my apartment because she said it wasn't suitable for an engaged couple. Then it was that her car was too old and she needed a new one. I made good money, like I said, so it didn't seem that weird to spoil my future wife, you know what I mean? My parents always taught me that when you love someone, you make sacrifices, that you give without expecting anything in return, and I really thought I loved her. I bought the purse, paid for the apartment renovation, which ended up costing like $40,000 because she wanted everything high-end, and even helped with the down payment on a new BMW for her. Every time I hesitated a bit, or asked if I needed to spend that much, she would get all sad and say things like, I didn't trust our future together, or that she just wanted to build a nice life with me. The wedding planning became a nightmare, honestly. Amber wanted everything. And when I say everything, it's everything. The venue she chose cost like $80,000 just for the space, not counting food or anything. The dress she wanted was from a designer I didn't even know, and cost $15,000. She wanted a honeymoon in the Maldives for 3 weeks. Every time I tried to suggest something more modest, she would tell me that we only got married once in a lifetime, that this was important to her, that her friends had had beautiful weddings and she deserved that too. I was working like crazy to cover everything, closing deal after deal, staying late at the office, and she kept adding things to the list. Flowers imported from Europe. A famous DJ. 7-course menu. Premium open bar. Fireworks at the end. My bank account was crying, but I kept telling myself it was worth it, that it was for our future. Everything changed one Tuesday afternoon. I think it was in April or May last year. I don't remember exactly the date, but I do remember everything else with a clarity that kills me. I got home early because I had canceled a meeting, like 3 in the afternoon when I normally got home at 7 or 8. Amber didn't know I was there because I came in super quietly, and she was in the living room talking on the phone with someone. At first, I didn't pay attention. I was going to go upstairs to change, but then I heard my name and something in her tone of voice made me stop. I stayed in the hallway, literally hiding like an idiot in my own house, and what I heard made the world come crashing down on me. Amber was talking to one of her friends, laughing, and said something like, "You can't believe it. This idiot is paying for absolutely everything. It's like having a personal ATM." And her friend must have said, Something because Amber laughed harder and said, "Of course I don't love him. Are you crazy? But he's rich and stupid, and that's enough for me. I'm going to have the wedding of my dreams. I'm going to get everything I want, and if I divorce him later, I take half of everything. It's the perfect plan." I stood there frozen, feeling like someone had punched me in the stomach, you know? I couldn't breathe well. My hands started shaking, and the worst part is that she kept talking. She said things like, I was a pathetic simp, that it had been super easy to manipulate me, that she just had to cry a little or get sad and I would do whatever she wanted. She specifically mentioned the BMW, the purse, the apartment renovation, laughing about how stupid I was. She said her friends had told her she was playing a dangerous game, but that she knew what she was doing, that she had me completely under control. At some point, I took out my phone and started recording. I don't even know why I did it. I guess some rational part of my brain knew I was going to need evidence, because this was so surreal that no one was going to believe me. I recorded like 3 minutes of the conversation before she hung up, and then I went into the bathroom and threw up. Literally. I threw up from the shock and betrayal I felt. I didn't say anything to her that day. I didn't say anything for the next 2 weeks. I kept acting normal, going to work, coming home, kissing her when I walked in, listening to her talk about the wedding, and the whole time I felt like I was living in a giant lie. But I needed a plan because I wasn't going to let her just get away with it. Not after everything she had done to me. Brian was the first to know. I told him one night when we went out for drinks, and he almost fell off his chair when I showed him the recording. He told me to tell her to go to hell immediately, but I told him I wanted to do something more, something that would really hurt her. Because the money she had gotten out of me was one thing, but the humiliation of having been such an idiot was something completely different. We planned everything together during those days, every detail, every timing, and I'm not gonna lie, part of me felt guilty about what I was going to do, but the other part, the part that had heard the woman who supposedly loved me call me a simp and an ATM, that part felt nothing but rage. 2 weeks after the day, I heard that call. I organized a barbecue at my house to celebrate the engagement with family and friends. I invited my parents, my sister, Amber's parents. Her dad was a school teacher and her mom owned a bakery, working honest people who had no idea what their daughter really was. Her friends, including Heather, who was like her best friend, and several of our mutual friends. It was one of those perfect Saturdays, with sun and everything, and Amber was super excited showing everyone the ring and talking about the wedding. I was grilling meat, serving drinks, being the perfect host, and inside I felt like I was about to explode. Brian was there too, helping me with everything and giving me those looks like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was sure, more sure than I'd been about anything in my life. Around 4 in the afternoon, when everyone had already arrived and was eating and drinking, I asked for everyone's attention. I said I wanted to make a toast to Amber, to our love, to our future, all that shit you're supposed to say on these occasions. Everyone raised their glasses. Amber was there smiling like it was the happiest day of her life, and then I took out my phone. I said something like, "Before the toast, I want to share something special with all of you, something that shows how incredible our relationship is." I connected the phone to the speakers we had outside and pressed play on the recording. The first few seconds were silence, but then Amber's voice came out clear as water saying, "You can't believe it. This idiot is paying for absolutely everything. It's like having a personal ATM." The silence that followed was brutal, like you could have heard a pin drop. Amber's face went from confusion to terror in like 2 seconds. She tried to run towards me to take the phone away, but Brian blocked her. The recording kept playing. Every poisonous word she had said, every cruel laugh, everything. I heard her mom make a sound like shock, and Amber's dad stood up with his face completely red. When the recording got to the part where she said she just had to cry a little to manipulate me, several people started making comments of shock and disgust. Heather, her supposed best friend, looked at her like she didn't know her. I let the recording finish completely, every horrible second of her destroying any image people had of her, and when it finally ended, I turned off the speakers and looked directly at Amber. She was crying, but they weren't tears of sadness but of panic. You know? She tried to say that everything was a joke, that I was taking things out of context, that she had never said those things seriously. but her voice on the recording had been so clear, so genuine in its cruelty, that nobody believed her. I extended my hand and told her, "Give me the ring," and she started begging, saying no, that we could talk, that she really loved me. I told her she had exactly 5 seconds to take off the ring, or I would take it off for her, and finally, she took it off with trembling hands and gave it to me. I announced that the engagement was officially canceled, that everyone could leave whenever they wanted, but that Amber had to leave my house immediately. Her dad approached her and said something in a low voice that I couldn't hear, but his disappointed face said it all. Her mom was crying, not for Amber, but from shame, I think. People started leaving quickly after that. Obviously, nobody wanted to stay for the drama that followed. Heather approached Amber before leaving and told her she never wanted to talk to her again, that she was a horrible person and deserved everything that happened to her. Amber's parents took her away, but I heard her dad tell her on the way out that she wasn't welcome in their house, that what she had done was unforgivable. My own parents stayed for a while after. My mom hugged me and told me she was so sorry about what happened, that she never imagined Amber was like that. My dad was more on the side of, "You should sue her for all the money she got out of you," but I honestly just wanted it all to be over. When everyone finally left, I sat in the backyard with Brian, surrounded by dirty dishes and decorations from a celebration that should never have happened, and I didn't know whether to laugh or cry at the absurdity of the whole situation. The next few days were crazy. Amber called me like 50 times, sent endless messages begging that we talk, saying she had made a mistake, that she really loved me but that she had panicked or some ridiculous excuse like that. I blocked her number after the first day. Her parents really kicked her out of the house. I found out later because her dad called me to apologize for everything, saying that he and his wife had worked honestly all their lives and never imagined their daughter would end up being like that. He told me Amber was staying with a cousin, but that they had cut off all communication with her. Heather also contacted me to apologize, said she had noticed some strange signs but never imagined Amber was capable of something like that, and that she and the other friends in the group had decided to cut her completely out of their lives. Apparently, Amber had asked them for help after what happened at the barbecue, and they all basically told her to screw off. Like 2 weeks after the incident, Amber showed up at my office. I don't know how she found out where I worked. I mean, yes, she knew the name of the company but had never been there. My assistant told me there was a woman insisting on seeing me, and when I asked her who it was and she said Amber, I almost had a heart attack. I told my assistant to call security if she didn't leave, but that before that I would let her in for 5 minutes, because a part of me, I guess, needed that final closure. She came into my office looking terrible, honestly, like she hadn't slept in days, and started immediately with how she made the biggest mistake of her life, that I was the love of her life, that everything she had said in that call was because she was stressed and wasn't thinking clearly. I asked her directly, "Did you ever really love me?" And she couldn't answer, just stood there crying, and that gave me all the answer I needed. I told her to leave and not try to contact me ever again, or I would call the police, and she finally left. Like 3 months went by without hearing anything from her, and honestly, I was starting to rebuild my life. I went out with friends again, focused on work, even started therapy because all that definitely left me with severe trust issues. Then one day I get a message on Instagram from a guy I didn't know. His name was Patrick, and he asked me if I was the Lucas who had been engaged to Amber. I replied yes, asking him why he wanted to know. And he told me that he and Amber had started dating like a month ago, but that something seemed weird about how she always asked about his financial situation, his job, how much he made. He asked me if something had happened between us that he should know about. I literally sent him the complete recording with a message that said, "Decide for yourself if you want to continue with this person." He replied like 2 hours later saying he had broken up with her immediately and thanking me for saving him from making a giant mistake. Amber sent me one last message after that. I think she found out that I had warned Patrick and basically insulted me, saying that I had ruined her life, that I was vindictive and that I'm going to regret it. I only replied once, telling her that she had ruined her own life the moment she decided that manipulating and using people was acceptable, and that I simply made sure that others didn't fall into the same trap. After that, I blocked that number too. I found out through Brian, who found out through a mutual friend, That Amber eventually moved to another city because she basically burned all bridges here. Nobody wanted anything to do with her. She lost all her friends, her family wasn't talking to her, and probably any guy she met in this area would eventually hear the story. Now, like almost a year after all that, I'm okay, I guess. I'm not gonna say I'm perfect or that I'm completely over it, because there are days where I still wonder how I could have been so blind, how I didn't see the signs. I sold the BMW I had bought her, recovered some of the money at least, undid all the expensive changes she had requested for the apartment, and left it how I liked it. And I sold the ring too. I lost a lot of money in total. If I add it all up, probably like $150,000 between the car, the renovations, the purse, the wedding deposits I didn't get back, and all the other random things. But honestly, considering I was about to marry that person and potentially lose much more in a divorce, I guess I came out relatively well. Brian is still my best friend and says all this made me stronger. That now I know exactly what red flags to look for. And he's probably right. My parents are more worried now when I mention I'm dating someone new, always asking 1,000 questions about the person. But I understand it. They were also fooled by Amber. Last week I saw Amber's parents at a supermarket. It was super awkward. Like we saw each other from far away and they approached, and her dad apologized to me again. They told me that Amber has tried to talk to them a couple of times, but that they maintain their position of not having contact with her until she proves she really changed, although her dad admitted he doubted that would ever happen. Her mom looked sad, not for what happened to me, but for having raised someone capable of that, and that made me feel a bit sorry for them because they really are good people who didn't deserve to have a daughter like that. I told them not to worry, that I was okay, and that I hoped someday Amber would learn from all this, although honestly I don't know if I believe it. We said goodbye and everyone continued with their shopping, and as I was driving back home, I was thinking about how strange that whole situation had been, how my life had been about to take a completely different direction, and everything collapsed because of a phone call I accidentally overheard. I guess in the end I was lucky, in a twisted and painful way, but lucky nonetheless. And that's enough for now.